Hey, Greg Harrelson here, Real Estate Sales Solutions, of course, and you probably recognize my co-pilot here, Abe, and we are coming at you again live. So, Abe, thanks for setting this thing up with making sure that we can go live, and welcome again. Thanks for joining me, man.
Yeah, as always, enjoy it. Yeah, let me get this up here real quick. Sorry.
All right. Yeah. Do you know right now, are you looking at the Facebook page by chance? I just want to make sure that we give people opportunities to answer or ask any questions. And
Yep, I've got it up.
All right. Well, great. Well, good. Well, we sure do welcome anyone to ask questions, make comments. One of the things that Abe and I are doing is just, wanting to be consistent about sharing on a weekly basis. So today is Wednesday. I believe it's 11:30 East Coast time. So, put this in y'all's calendar. We plan to continue to do this, throughout the weeks. Now, today, Abe, we are talking about handling today's objections. So not just handling objections, but handling today's objections. So, for those of you listening, please, if you have an objection that you feel is a little bit, or any objection, if you have any objection that you're hearing that you would like us to talk about, maybe handle it, give you some tips on how to handle it, put that in the comments, and as long as we're live and we see that comment, we'll deal with it. So, when we think about handling today's objections, what does that mean, today's objections? When you think about that, Abe, what's the difference today than yesterday, or today than yesterday as in 3 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're always going to get the same general objections that we get over and over, right? But right now, the current market condition with inventory being as tight as it is, there's going to be certain objections that you're going to hear more and more.
Mm-hmm.
For example, like one of the most common ones that I'm hearing right now is, yeah, I'd love to sell right now in this market. I just don't know where to go. I've got nowhere to go. If I sell, then I don't have a place to buy. All right. So that's probably the biggest objection right now that we're all out there facing in today's market.
Yeah, I would agree. So if you're listening to this live, I'd like to know if you're getting that particular objection. If it's just Abe and I, but I know that it's probably everybody, Abe. And so, when it comes to today's objections, I mean, when somebody throws up that objection, we need to hear more than just, oh, they don't have anywhere to move. So, like, Abe, if I'm not going to role play right this second, even though we may role play at some point today. But if you could get into the mental state the state of mind of that buyer that tells you, you're telling me, I'd like to sell, but I just don't know where I'll move. Okay. Right. So not a role play, but I'm going to ask you some questions like, what are you possibly afraid of?
And I'm the buyer, right?
Yeah. No, you're the seller. You're the seller.
I'm the seller. Yeah, sorry, you're the agent. Yeah.
I'm trying to. I'm not asking you to role play. That wasn't a role play question. I'm trying to ask just psychologically what's going on for you to say that to me. What are you really feeling or experiencing today?
Right. Gotcha. Yeah, and that's a great question, because that's what you want to get into their heads and see what they're thinking.
Yeah. So what's one thing you think they may be thinking?
So that there's just no inventory out there for them to buy.
Okay.
And that they're scared that their home is going to go under contract, and now they've got to really rush and try to find something, and then end up overpaying or end up being in a property that they don't like.
Okay. Rushed. Yeah. Overpaying. Mm-hmm. Forced to make a decision and getting something that they may regret.
Or even be homeless. I mean,
be homeless.
Some of them get that insecure about it, that I might be homeless. I sell this home, I have nowhere to go. Yeah.
See, I hope everyone gets this. When handling an objection, too often we're trying to overcome the objection instead of trying to find a solution for their concerns. I mean, listen, I don't want to sound, like I'm patting myself on the back here, but you really need to hear what I just said. Real estate agents are always trying to figure out how to overcome objections. When real estate agents, what we should really be doing is we should be listening and learning what their true concerns are that are never the objection. They never, the objection is I don't know, I don't want to sell now because of blank. But their concern is not really selling now or not selling now. Their concern are all kinds of words that Abe just shared. Insecurity, uncertainty. They're afraid they could be homeless. They may be forced to make a decision to buy something that they regret later. They may overpay because of desperation. They may have to make multiple moves, and they've got a child that they're trying to get into a school, different school district. We need to know what's behind the objection before we know how to respond to the objection. And the best response you can ever give to an objection, the best response is going to be a solution to their concerns. But the concerns don't show up in the objections. Thoughts on that, Abe?
Yeah, I mean, that's spot on, Greg. Yeah, I mean, so I'm visual, right? When you said
Yes.
that, something just popped in my head. I'm visualizing that there's a fire and there's smoke. The objection is the smoke, and the agents are saying they're trying to fan the smoke. When you're trying to figure out is, okay, what is the actual source of that smoke? So by you asking that question, try to figure out what their concerns are, you're going straight to the fire, and that's how you're going to be able to put out the fire. You're not going to do it by fanning the smoke.
That's fantastic. That's an excellent way to describe it. That's
and the more you push, the tougher it's going to be, because guess what every agent's saying to that seller? Don't worry, we're not going to get you in a position that you're going to be uncomfortable. We'll find you a place. Let's just get the thing on the market. Let's just list it. Let's just list it. That's what people are saying over and over. And that's the last thing that the seller wants to hear. Yeah,
that is not solving a solution. Now, I'll make an attempt to solve or to create a solution to solve some of their concerns. And one attempt, and everyone's going to probably say, oh, yes, we're already doing that. Okay, just bear with me for a moment. So one of the things that you can do as an attempt to solve their concerns and bring certainty back into their uncertain mindset, the state of mind, is you can say, I tell you what we'll do. It's becoming more and more common for us to negotiate some sort of lease back. I would imagine if you could sell your property, have the money in the bank, and have the right to stay in the property for up to another 3 months or 6 months, that would probably provide you enough time to do this transaction. Would you agree with that? Well, yeah, I mean, if we could get 6 months, that would probably work, but there's no buyers that are going to be willing to do that. Okay, there's another kind of like an objection or smokescreen. That's not accurate that there's no buyers. That's not accurate. There are plenty of buyers that are willing to do this. Not all buyers, but there are buyers that are willing to do this. So some people who are listening are probably saying, okay, Greg, we're already making that attempt, but that's not working. Well, it might not be that attempt, it's the attempt that's not working. Maybe they don't perceive that that's quite a solution yet. Like that might be an idea, that might be a fantasy, that might be a possibility, but they don't know that it's a certainty. So what I might say is Abe, so this is how we can do it. I mean, I'm assuming that if I could sell your property, you could get your money in the bank, which would put you in a much stronger position to buy your next property. But besides that, I could also protect you and build in the contract that you could stay in the property for up to an additional 6 months. Do you think that would give you enough time for you to go ahead and move forward and do the transaction? So let's just assume that they're kind of like on the fence. Now, what I'm going to say is this, that's going to really, really help, that a lot of agents, I think, skip. And that is, Abe, as we're making this decision, I want you to know that I work for you. I'm on your team. I may get offers that are going to tempt you to accept, because they're going to pay over full price. They're going to say they got cash. they're going to say they're ready to close quick. In normal times, we'd be tempted. We'd jump all over that offer. But I make this commitment to you. If we get an offer and it does not meet all of your criteria, meaning if they will not negotiate where you can stay in this property for up to an additional 90 days or 6 months, we will reject the offer, and I will completely support that decision. In other words, I will not be trying to convince you to do anything unless it meets all the criteria. So I just want you to know I'm on your side. Now, that's how you're giving them certainty, because there's still a little bit of uncertainty in their minds. And that is, okay, Greg, I see the idea of a leaseback. That sounds good, but is there really a buyer? Well, now I'm going to add another layer of certainty. I don't know if there really is or there isn't for your property at this time, but I'll guarantee you one thing: we won't sell it to any buyer but a buyer that will agree to that. Now I'm bringing certainty into the conversation, that they know this is not a bait and switch. This is a possibility, and you're protecting their downside by telling them you're not going to pressure them to do something that doesn't meet that criteria. My point in handling today's objections is today there's more fear and uncertainty, so we have to add a few additional sentences to the communication that brings a sense of certainty to the seller in this particular case.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. That's spot on. You know, I do the same exact thing. I also throw in the language of, look, Mr. Seller, you know, the way the market is right now, that same pressure, that same fear of you not finding something right now, guess what? That's the same exact feeling that buyers out there have.
Oh.
And because of that's what they're all feeling, and because there's no inventory out there, there's never been a time where a seller has more leverage than we have right now. So I'm not concerned about, you know, who comes and brings offers, because there's going to be multiple offers coming. So we can stipulate exactly what we want in a contract. So now the thing is to be able to get it out there, and let's get you that perfect scenario for you. You know, so I'll mention, because the market being as hot as it is, inventory being as tight as it is, we can spin that, and not spin it in a manipulating way, but also, you know, sell it to the seller as, look, this is the perfect time, because it is, right? You got the perfect store right now to be a seller, right? So as if you're concerned about being able to find something, then by you getting out there on the market right now, you can stipulate anything you want within that contract. It's all negotiable, and we won't do anything. We will not sign anything or even consider anything unless it dots every single I and crosses every single T that you want within the sale. You know.
Yeah. So I think what you're addressing here is that the probability of finding a buyer that will agree to these terms is higher. There's a higher probability of the transaction working out, even though we're having to add these additional stipulations. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
No question whatsoever.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, I just did one. The other day for that home in Prestwick, and we went back and forth, and we finally got up to. It happened to be up to 55 days. I'm not sure how we got to this number of 55 days, but it was up to 55 days lease back. Now I want to make sure that everyone hears what how I'm wording this. I'm not saying, and I'm not an attorney, and I recommend you talk to an attorney. And we have all talked to an attorney in our office, and he's instructed us on how to, you know, write up these kind of stipulations. But, you know, be careful at committing your seller to lease back for 6 months, because then once they do a lease back for 6 months, they're committing to a 6-month lease. I'm saying up to 6 months. So if I find my seller a property in 30 days and they close on it in 30 days, that's a fast closing in today's market, that would be 2 months. I don't want my seller to be obligated to pay an additional 4 months of payments when they're only going to need to stay there for 2 months. So, you know, talk to your broker, your attorney on how you all prefer to work it, but we are doing up to and we're not committing to a specific date to give my seller the opportunity to shorten that period of time, which in most cases, the buyers actually like that, because what you're telling them is, hey, we may not need the full time. So we'll just up to. So we'll continue to work on getting something, and we'll move out as quickly as we can. If we can move out in 30 days, we won't take the full 90 days. So that's giving them a little bit more of certainty that they're going to be able to move into this property sooner than later.
Yeah, absolutely. So Pat Billings had a question.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that you would not put a contingency for the seller to find the replacement property.
You could.
Yeah.
You could do that. That's a possibility. I mean, there's many ways. I could probably handle the objection, 20 different ways. So that could be another variation. Everyone, it's kind of like ice cream flavors. We all might like ice cream, or majority of like ice cream, but we may have different flavors that we prefer. By the way, mine's mint chip and Rocky Road, like a double scoop on a cake cone. So if we ever around each other in the future, you see a ice cream shop, you just say, Greg, you want a cake cone with some Rocky Road and mint chip? I'm in. You got me. You will have me at that moment. So yes, Patricia.
So yeah, that's another option. I mean, look, there's a lot of options, but the main thing is do like Greg said earlier, and really get to the source, get to that concern, find out where the fire is, find out what they're really worried about, and then address that, showing them that, look, these are multiple options that we can do. Mm-hmm. But again, I think really pointing out that because of the way the market is right now, it's to your advantage as a seller. Right now, you can pretty much dictate anything you want to do. And I guarantee you that some buyer out there is going to be willing to accept it.
Yes, yes. And if you're thinking about like, well, I represent buyers, I would never have them accept that. Well, think about this. Like, let's go in reverse, and let's just assume for a minute that you actually convinced your buyer to accept that term 6 months ago. And your buyer is just now getting ready to move into that property. If you didn't do that with your buyer, and your buyer was just now going to write a contract on that property right now, would the buyer be paying more or less money than what they could have 6 months ago? So if I'm representing a buyer and I'm dealing with this scenario in today's hot market, I'm thinking, hey, look, there's pros and cons to this. One of the cons is you can't move in right away. One of the pros is you get to lock in on a property that you want. You get to lock in at today's prices instead of actually paying next week's prices or next month's prices or next 6 months' prices, because it could be that long before you find another property. So if it takes another 3 months to find them a property that they fall in love with, and they have to, if it takes them 3 more months versus actually agreeing to let somebody stay here for 3 more months, then the time that it takes before they move in is the same, but the price is not. I'm locking my buyers in today's price. What are you smiling about, Abe?
I'm looking at some of these comments. Somebody like Picho Paterno. I don't know what Picho Paterno flavor that is.
Is that a new flavor?
I guess. I don't know. Peach.
All right. I like it.
I'm basic. I like strawberry.
Yeah, you and my son Lucas. You guys are like, man, I'll take some Haagen-Dazs strawberry. You're in. Good. Did anybody post any objections that they're concerned? I know a lot of people always want to talk about commission objections, but anybody else have anything unique?
I don't see any of the objections that are posted. If you guys have anything out there that you're dealing with, just post it on here. Yeah,
if you have a unique one, send it to us.
You got us live answering questions.
Yes. So
Greg,
go ahead.
Here's another one. Right? If I sell high, I can get a good price right now. But if I sell high, guess what? I'm buying high as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So that's coming out, a few times here and there.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you can buy low, then what does that mean for your sell?
Yeah. Yeah, you're gonna be selling low.
Yeah, I mean that's like, come on, man. You really like I'm not talking to you, but I'm in my mind. I'm thinking, come on, like, can you finish the sentence? Sell high, buy high, sell low, or buy low, sell high. It's always so the market's going to move together. So when I'm dealing with a buyer or a seller who is doing two transactions, then I want to remove the emotion and I want to think about that. I tell them, I said, what you're doing, Abe, you're not really buying or selling. Don't worry about buying high, selling low, buying low. Don't worry about that. What you're doing is you're repositioning your equity from a property that you no longer have an interest in, that no longer serves your purpose, and you're repositioning that equity into a property that's going to serve your future purposes. So you're not really buying or selling. You're repositioning equity from one property, one asset to another asset, and any appreciation that you would anticipate that you would have got out of this asset that you're in now, you're probably going to get that same appreciation or more out of the new asset. So don't worry about this property going up or down, because it's good. The market's going to move together. It's not about selling high, buying high, selling low, buying low. It's about repositioning. Right now is a great time to reposition your equity into a property that'll serve your family and serve the greater purpose. Wouldn't you agree? That's the conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah, especially when it's a lateral move, right? If they're staying within the same market, that's the exact conversation to have, you know?
Yes. And in most markets, even across the country, if you sell in Myrtle Beach right now high, you're probably buying high wherever you're going, and vice versa. Coming or going, you're probably experiencing that. So today is really, to me, it's all about repositioning. That's all it is. You're probably, with rare exceptions, if you're buying and selling or selling and buying, it's going to be a rare exception where you're going to really, besides taxation, where you're probably going to get you're going to sell at high and you're going to get a steal on something else. Very unlikely to happen. So our decisions should be made based on repositioning into a property that serves a higher purpose for myself or my family or whoever else is involved.
Gotcha.
You know, we hear it in the condo market. Well, I don't want to sell. I mean, because I want to buy another condo, but that other condo is too expensive. It's like, it's the same thing. You're going to just take your $50,000, $200,000 of equity, and it's going to, instead of it being in the Bank of Belle Grove, it's going to be in the Bank of Avalon, which is community names. It's just your equity is going to be sitting in that property versus that property. It's the only thing that's really taking place.
All right, so here's one, Greg, from Kevin Cooper. So people are holding off because they think the government might change the 1031 rule. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that people should actually, I do believe that the rules are going to change also, but the rules are going to get less advantageous. So people should not be holding off. People should be selling. Because what you want to do, your 1031 exchange benefits, I'm not an accountant, not a CPA. Talk to them. My CPA is saying, Greg, if you're going to sell anything in the next 4 years that's going to have a capital gain, sell it now. Because the capital gain benefits should be higher right now than it will be in whenever there is a change. So people that should not be holding off, they should actually be doing these 1031 exchanges. Now, Kevin could be saying something a little bit different. I don't know what they're holding off from, but usually if somebody's holding off, that means they're holding off selling, not holding off buying. And because if they can't hold off buying because there's a short fuse with the rules. I think some are worried they might change the changes effective the beginning of the year. Any thoughts on that? Beginning of, I guess he's thinking retroactive. That's a possibility. So here, the key is if somebody needs to sell something, if somebody wants to sell, they should sell. They shouldn't be trying to time this thing. They shouldn't be trying to, like, okay, there's a reason why they want to sell it, Kevin. I'd have to figure out what that reason is. But that reason is if they hold off right now because they think the rule is going to be retroactive, that's kind of a smaller risk than not doing it. And then finding out that it's not retroactive, but it's too late. And then they're locked in for another 4, 6, possibly 8 years of not being able to sell. That's going to be a much worse situation.
All right. So here's a commission one. We knew that was going to come up at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, we
So,
have top producer listed for one. How do
yes,
you
I mean,
even start?
when it comes to commission, I mean, the one thing I always ask is if they say, look, I've got someone that can do it for 1%, I'm like, look, just curious, what exactly are they going to be doing for that 1%?
Mm-hmm.
And throw it back at the seller. And I want to know, in most cases, they don't have a clue.
Yeah,
And most,
and let's be careful on 1%, but it's X percent.
whatever,
Yeah, whatever
whatever.
it is. Yeah, because we don't want to have a conversation about of price fixing by any means, and that's not our intention. But yeah, I agree. So here's the thing about commission as I see it, and I know Abe you'll agree with this, is commission is a fool's conversation. Fool's conversation. Now I say that with a lot of respect. But the consumer that thinks lower commission is higher net, that's a foolish assumption. Foolish assumption. The challenge is, as an industry, we have two people that I think are responsible for this foolish conversation around commission. It's real estate companies that try to entice you by telling you they're going to give you a lower commission. But at the end of the day, when you look at your net, it's not much different from company to company. But everyone wants to entice you based on a commission conversation. But then they'll fee you here, or you won't get these benefits and all this other thing. You look at the net after you make a shift, and you see that you really don't, very rarely do you net that much more. But it's a fool's conversation, because most people think about commission, they don't think about net. The same things happen from real estate agents to consumer. Oh, we'll lower the commission, as if that's the value that's most important to a transaction. That does not get them that much money. If you look at the value of a true professional, they should be able to add more net than a real estate agent can add by a commission adjustment. The second thing is like I always say, it's like, with commissions, the cheapest option is not always the least expensive. Now let's think about this. I had a negotiation. I told you all earlier. No, that was Myrtle Beach Real Estate TV that I said this. I had a negotiation the other day. I sold a unit at a complex called True Blue, $259,900. List price, sold it, $259,900. Appraisal comes in, $235,000. That's a pretty far off appraisal. With my market knowledge and what I believe is decent negotiating skills, we were able, because the buyer was asking me to get my seller to come down to the $235,000. I said to my seller, nope, don't recommend it. There's another pending that's cash that's going to close probably in the next 30 days, maybe 2 weeks. If we lose this buyer, put it back on the market, I'll get another buyer, probably at the same price that we're asking, and it'll close, and the appraisal will probably be ordered after this cash deal closes. Once that cash deal closes, that's the only comp we need, and this appraisal is going to go up to exactly where we need it. Seller decided to trust me on this one. Went back to the buyer. I didn't just say no to the buyer. I said, look, Mr. Buyer, to the other agent, I said, look, here's a CMA. The $235,000 is extremely low because there's already comparables at $246,000. So it should at least be at $246,000. But look at these pendings here. There's 3 pendings. 2 of them are at the $255,000 range. I don't know what they're going to close at. Soon they're going to close probably at full price. And one was at $260,000. It's exactly where we are. This one's cash. So I'm not worrying about appraisal. It's going to close. That agent went back to the buyer, and I assure you, they conveyed the same exact information to their buyer as I conveyed to that other agent. See, my job was to represent my seller. And when I represented my seller, my job was to convince that other agent to convince their buyer to do this deal with us at our price. That property is pending. That buyer is going to pay. the difference, he's going to pay the appraisal gap, the difference between the 235 and the 259.9. I don't believe that there's a lot of agents that would be cutting commissions that would have the skill sets to actually save that seller that deal. So when we look at how much money I added to that transaction because of that skill set, the value that I brought to the table, somebody would have had to pay them commission, pay the seller. They'd have to take a 0% commission plus pay the seller for the seller to have netted more money than what I put him in position to net. So just understand, commission is never the issue in any conversation. Value that you bring to the seller is the challenge. It's always a value conversation, never a commission conversation. It's just nobody ever told property owners that the proper question is, can you share with me why I should pay you this? Can you share with me a little bit more about how you're different and bring more value to the transaction than another agent? They don't ask that question because no one told them to. They were told, always ask an agent to cut the commission because a lot of times they'll do it. That's what they were told. So they're just asking what they were told to ask. They don't know the right question. So you, as a real estate professional, we should stop answering the wrong question. And we should start talking about the real concern, which is net. Now, what you have to do as an agent is you have to figure out, you have to be crystal clear in today's market as to what your value is. And you have to think like you're on a Broadway play in Manhattan, on Broadway, and you've got to stand up there and you got to make that presentation night after night after night, and it must be flawless. If you get clear on what your value is and you can present it in a manner that's flawless, you will laugh at commission conversations.
I don't know what else to add to that one. That was perfect. There's not much to add to that. So we're running out of time. We're actually out of time, but let's get one more because we got a question from YouTube.
Yeah, that's an easy one. You want to handle that one?
Yes. I mean, so when it comes to a just sold conversation, so I take my leads through a 4-step process. Right. The first question is that I'm trying to answer, and it's not word for word, right? But the first thing I want to try to gather is, are you looking to sell? Okay, and if I determine that that's a no, I go to step number 2. Step number 2 is like, look, we're getting a ton of buyer leads in that area. You know, any neighbors that might be thinking of selling, right? So that's another option, another possibility of getting a referral, right? If that's a no, then I go to the 3rd step, which is, okay, well, great. You know, sounds like you're really enjoying the place. You know, who do you know that might be buying or selling right now that I can help? So 3 steps and to get either a listing or another possible listing on a referral or a buyer or a seller referral. And then finally, I'm going to say, look, it sounds like you're all set right now. Everything's working out perfect for you. Great neighborhood. Why don't I do this? I'll drop you my contact information. If you ever have any questions at all about the neighborhood, I keep a very close eye on it. Or if you ever come across somebody that might be looking to buy or sell, would love to be a resource for you. I know we can help them out and match them up with these buyers, and they'll love you forever. I'll just drop over my contact information through email. What's the best email to send that to? I mean, I just use that a 4-step process every single time. And then just that basic, just asking for the email, I'll get somewhere between 20 to 30%, usually closer to 30% of every single person I talk to, I get their email. Yeah. Now, there's other scripts out there that you can use, but I've been just using that pretty basic, and it works.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, what's good about what you just said is you're sharing them up front that you're going to deliver value. Mm-hmm. You know, you're going to share something with them of value. And so if people understand that they're trading an email for something of value, they're going to trade the email. But so you have to set it up and kind of like share, okay, I'm going to do this. What's your best email? Right. And they usually just respond real quickly with it's blank.
Yeah, now if I ask that same question after the first one, whether they're selling or not, I'm not going to get any email addresses. But by going through that whole process, I'm like, okay, great. It sounds like you're enjoying it. What about some neighbors? I mean, we've got these buyers. We'd love to match them up. yes, now I am delivering that value, or, and then it makes it a whole lot easier for them to just give me the email at the end. And then your second question on, is it smart to sell now and buy low? I'm not a big fan of that. It really comes down to what your investment strategy is as a seller. Trying to time the market, I'm not a big believer in trying to time it. So it really depends on what your investment strategy is and what your long-term investment goals are to make that determination.
Yeah, I agree with you, Abe. I'd say the same thing. I mean, that would be. I've shared with a family member to do that in the past, not in today's market, but that was unique to like their situation, and it wasn't necessarily a strategy just based on like, oh my gosh, the market is so hot right now. So, I would say that I could see myself in very rare occasions suggesting that, but I could also I don't want to say that it's never a possible strategy.
And then one quick one here. Are we still using HomeBot? 100%. Every single email, every single person we get is going into HomeBot every time.
I will say this, and I don't think that there's a better display of home data for a seller than what HomeBot does. So HomeBot, you're welcome for that little plug, because but I sincerely mean that, and I think it's a phenomenal product. All right, man, we're over time. I hope everyone did enjoy that. We are going to be back next week on Wednesday at 11:30. And like we did this time, I do think that there was a little bit of a notification letting you know that we were being on. So put this in your calendars, have your questions ready, and we'll keep serving real estate sales solutions community.
Everybody enjoyed it.
All right.
See ya.
Bye.